Hyperlane transit in progress. Estimated time to reversion, 3 hours, 47 minutes. All non-essential personnel remain on standby.
You ever notice how hyperspace makes time stretch? It's like the moment you jump, the galaxy forgets to exist. Just the hum of the engine and recycled air for hours. Nothing to do but sit, clean your rifle, and pretend you're not thinking. Command calls it transit silence, says it's for operational security. I think it's so you have time to reflect. Or maybe they're hoping you don't. You want to hear stories? From me? I'm from the first batch, first proper generation of Imperial Stormtroopers. Not clones, not Fett spawned from Camino, real recruits, real people, pulled from cities, farm worlds, spaceports. Anyone they could promise a steady paycheck and feed them enough glory to keep them marching. This was right after the Republic fell, when they still called it a reorganization, when everything was changing but no one wanted to admit it. The clones were still around, sure, a lot of them training us actually. Grizzled, tired, bitter types. You could tell they didn't like us much, said we hesitated too much, lacked genetic discipline. But they were aging fast. Not many were left by the time I shipped out for my first post. We were the fresh blood, shiny armor, clean boots, and we called ourselves the true sons of the Empire. Thought we were building something better. Turns out we were just the next layer of concrete on top of a broken foundation. They sold it to us like we were heroes in the making, defenders of peace and order. No more corruption, no more endless wars, just control, stability, and strength. You think it'll be some action holo story, heroes and traitors, last stands and glory. But here's the thing they never tell you during recruitment. The stories that stick with you, they're not glorious. They're messy, confusing, some of them don't even make sense until years later, and some never do, but you carry them, whether you want to or not. I signed up believing in the Empire, serve with pride, protect the peace. But war doesn't feel like peace when you're mopping blood out of your boots or holding a blaster to someone's head because your lieutenant can't tell civilians from insurgents. The real stories don't get medals, they get buried, sometimes literally. But if you're really asking, yeah, I've got stories. Some are about the rebels, some about officers, some about things we did in the name of the Emperor that I still can't look at straight. You want clean endings? Go find a holodrama. You want the kind of stories that'll keep a man up at night? Alright, here's one. We called it the Null deck incident. Now listen, every ship's got a dead zone. A place where the lights don't feel right, the air smells wrong, maybe the temperature's always a little too cold or the comms cut out for no reason. On the Valiant, that place was Deck 13G. We called it Null Deck. Probably because scanners never showed any life signs down there, even when you were in it. It wasn't supposed to exist. Technically, 13G got sealed off during a retrofit 2 cycles ago, but like most things in the fleet, sealed off means still there if you know the right hatch code. Engineering knew. They'd send junior techs down there when they needed to hide a job that didn't meet inspection. Power reroutes, vent purges, dirty maintenance work no one wanted logged. I got sent down there on a coolant alert. Standard fix, some leaky line messing with the pressure sensors. They sent 4 of us. Me, Alda, Rallo, and a new kid named Kavos. Barely out of academy, helmet still too shiny. We dropped in through an access shaft near the recycling deck. The second we crossed the threshold into 13G, the comms clicked, static. It was like that fuzz that make you think someone's breathing in your ear. Unnerving, but not unusual. The layout was wrong though. Walls were a bit too narrow, bulkheads a bit too close together, like someone built it from memory instead of schematics. Half the lights were dead too. We had to use our helmet strobes, and all that did was throw shadows across more shadows. We found the junction panel after about 10 minutes of winding corridors. It looked fine. No leak, no pressure spike, no sign of coolant at all. That's when Kavos said it. Do you hear that? We didn't, not at first. Then I caught it, real faint, like metal creaking, then voices, garbled, like a comm loop echoing through a vent. We did a sweep, and there was no movement, but Kavos wouldn't stop turning around, every 30 seconds, spinning like someone was behind him. Alda told him to knock it off, said he was scaring himself. I wanted to believe that, I really did. Then the lights went out. Total blackout. Strobes cut out too, like someone flipped a master breaker. Now let me tell you, in the dark, you start thinking weird things. Like, did we take the right turns? How far are we from the hatch? Was that noise a footstep, or just your own breathing bouncing off the walls? Then we heard him scream, like someone yanked his air supply. By the time we got lights back, maybe 10 seconds, maybe a minute, Kavos was gone. No blood, no blaster marks, no dropped gear, nothing, just gone. We ran a sweep and we tripled back to the panel, then the entry point, and there was nothing. Rilo wanted to log it. I said no. Something about it didn't sit right. If we logged a man lost on a sealed deck, Command would start asking questions, and the ones who ask questions don't get leave. They get reassigned, or worse, investigated by ISB. We waited until we were off shift and then quietly checked the ship logs. There was no record of the coolant leak, no record of our dispatch, no mention of Deck 13G in the current ship layout. 2 days later, Kavos' name disappeared from the squad roster like he'd never been there at all. Thing is, we still hear about that deck. Every few cycles, some junior tech gets sent down by mistake. One swears he heard footsteps behind him. Another said his HUD flickered and showed an old Clone Wars era command seal for half a second. We finally sealed that access shaft ourselves, welding torch and unauthorized. Rilo called it an unofficial decommission, Aldo called it self-defense. Engineering didn't ask questions and command didn't notice. But every time the lights flicker on the lower decks, someone always mutters about Null. And every time I pass near the old junction port, my comms buzz like someone breathing just out of range. I don't think we were the first ones to lose someone down there. I just think we were the first ones who came back and remembered. The first time they let me off the ship, I thought I was ready. Months of drills, weapons, quals, field exercises, you name it. I figured war would feel like a test I could ace. Just follow orders, keep your helmet on, hit your target. We dropped onto Arcanus, Outer Rim, agricultural world mostly. You wouldn't even know it existed unless you were looking for it. But some rebels decided to hijack a mining station and make a stand. Command spun it like a strategic disruption of Imperial economic flow. Translation, we were going down there to shoot farmers with stolen rifles. The weather was hell. Storm system parked over the valley for days. You couldn't see 5 meters in front of you. Everything was mud. Thick, clinging sludge that got into your boots, your joints, your rifle barrel if you weren't careful. The kind of mud that makes you think gravity's stronger there. They briefed us like it would be easy. Minimal resistance, disorganized enemy, standard sweep and secure. What they didn't tell us was that Intel had no clue how many fighters were down there or who was even doing the fighting. We reached the outskirts of the village just before dawn. Settlement was maybe 50 homes, half of them prefab sheds with roofs patched together from scrap and tarp. Looked like nothing, felt like nothing. We breached. First shot came from a rooftop, caught Davik in the throat. Then the rest of us opened up, standard reflex. Flash and fire, shoot anything that moves. We cleared homes, kicked down doors, turned over furniture. I remember someone yelling, "Clear," right before another shot came through a window and dropped him where he stood. Most of them weren't soldiers. They had blasters, sure, but most of them were ancient. But once you're in it, it doesn't matter. The second someone fires, the whole village is a battlefield and everyone's a target. I kicked in a door near the end of the sweep and saw a kid standing there. Couldn't have been older than 9. Skinny, shaking, feet bare in the mud. He had a blaster in his hands. Small one. You could tell he didn't know how to hold it, but it was pointed at me. I hesitated, and then someone else pulled the trigger. I don't know who. In the noises and chaos, it's hard to tell where the shots come from. All I know is that a second later, the kid was on the ground, and there was a lot of red soaking into the brown. We didn't find a command post, no real leadership, just a bunch of terrified locals who didn't know why their world mattered to anyone. 16 civilians dead, 4 armed rebels confirmed, and the rest, unverified threats. That's what the lieutenant wrote. That's what went into the report. On the way back to the transport, no one talked, not even Alda, and that guy never shut up. The only sound was the squelch of mud under boots and the hiss of rain on metal. Back on the ship, the lieutenant called it a successful operation. Minimal casualties, full control restored. Said we'd get a rotation bonus. I didn't want it. I just wanted to get my armor clean. The smell wouldn't come out for days. The kid's face stayed longer. We weren't heroes, we weren't peacekeepers, we were just blunt instruments dropped into the mud to solve a problem someone else couldn't be bothered to understand. They say the Empire brings order, but out there, in the real fight, order just means doing what you're told, even when it doesn't make sense. Even when it costs more than you can carry. You never forget your first stop, because it teaches you the truth. The Empire doesn't want soldiers, it wants obedience. But not every posting came with blaster fire and explosions. I remember when they stuck us on Lotho Minor for 93 days. Officially, we were securing a remote logistics corridor on the northern ridge. Vital transit point, they said, higher rebel activity. So we dropped in, set up a prefabricated checkpoint, and waited. And waited, and waited. Nothing happened. Just wind, dust, and the same supply shuttle every 12 days. First week, we ran drills. Second week, we built extra barricades out of boredom. By the third week, we were painting kill markers on rocks just to keep our hands busy. Command never gave us updates, just a daily ping to confirm we were alive. No comms beyond our immediate superiors who were just as in the dark. One day, a scout from another unit dropped by. Said Valis hadn't had rebel contact in over 2 years. The route we were guarding? Decommissioned. We weren't protecting anything. We were filling a box on someone's deployment chart. That realization hit different, made every sunrise feel heavier. Troopers got quiet. Some stopped taking off their helmets at all. You ever see a man sleep in full armor? Rollo started talking to a rock he named Captain Crate. Alder carved tally marks into the inside of his helmets. I think he thought he'd hit 100. He didn't make it that far. We lost him on day 72. He walked out past the perimeter before sunrise, left his rifle and helmet behind, didn't say a word. We followed his tracks for a few clicks, then they just stopped. Wind probably erased the rest, or maybe he found something out there. Maybe he just stopped walking. We didn't report it. If we did, they might have sent someone to investigate, or worse, they might have made us stay longer. On day 94, we were pulled out with no explanation. Transport touchdown, told us to pack up, and we left the checkpoint exactly as we found it. Clean, empty, pointless. Sometimes I wonder if Alder ever made it back to the ridge, if his boots are still out there somewhere, half buried in the dust. You think war breaks you with fire and noise, but sometimes it's the quiet that gets there first. Alder, I miss that guy. Loud, annoying, always had some smart-ass comment in his helmet channel, but he kept the edge off. No one saw him again after that posting. Don't know where he ended up. Just hope he found the peace we were promised when we signed up. Anyways, I remember this one run we did. It was a short mission. Should have been nothing. A convoy escort in Morak. This was a simple assignment. It should have been a nothing job. In and out, no surprises. That's how they always start, isn't it? We were 5 in the escort detail. Me, Thatcher, Lorne, Vask, and a comtech named Till. We were assigned to the middle transport, sandwiched between 2 haulers and a scout skiff. They loaded the vehicles with fuel cells, ration kits, and a few locked crates we weren't authorized to open. Standard cargo. We took the canyon route. Tight, winding, easy to secure. That's what command always said. Hard to flank and easy to monitor. What they never mentioned was how easy it was to trap us in there. The trip started quiet. Too quiet. Thatcher even said something about it. "If this stays boring, drinks are on me," he said, tapping the side of his helmet like it was a lucky charm. He jinxed us. Hard. It happened late afternoon. Sky was starting to turn that dusty orange. We were halfway through a narrow stretch when the first blast hit. A pressure charge under the lead transport. It lifted the whole front end off the ground and turned it into a fireball. I still remember the shockwave, like someone punched me through my armor. The front half of the convoy was gone in seconds. Fire, smoke, scattered debris. I think the driver died instantly. The gunner might have tried to crawl out. I saw a glove moving before it stopped. Before we could even process, the second explosion went off behind us, sealing the canyon exit. Then came the blaster fire. High ridgeline, good cover. They had the angle. Rebels, or maybe locals who'd had enough of our resource security protocols, didn't matter. They knew what we were doing. We scrambled out of the transport. Thatcher was the first out, didn't even wait for the signal. Started laying down suppressive fire while the rest of us caught up. I took a bolt in the shoulder plate and hit the ground behind a crate of fuel cells. Vask was already down, caught a shot to the helmet. Till froze. He was a rookie, fresh deployment. He just kept shouting, "We're boxed in, we're boxed in," over and over until Thatcher grabbed him and shoved him behind cover. "We know," he barked. "Shut up and shoot or we'll all die in here." That snapped him out of it. We returned fire. Hard to tell how many of them there were. Sound bounced off the rocks like there were 100, but I think it was maybe 8, 10 at most. They had elevation, timing, and surprise. We had bad luck and a canyon full of flammable cargo. We tried calling for backup, but the comms were fried. Jamming, probably, or maybe the blast knocked out the array. Either way, we were on our own. At one point, I remember watching Thatcher climb up onto the side of the transport to get a better angle. He popped 3 shots, hit 2 targets clean, then ducked down when the whole ridge lit up in response. He dropped back behind the crate and laughed. Actually laughed. "Almost bought it," he said. "Would have been embarrassing. Sniped on a crate of bantha meat." That was Thatcher, always joking, even in the worst of it. Eventually, we pushed them back. Lorne flanked left through a crevice and caught 2 off guard. I dropped another with a lucky shot between 2 rocks. The rest scattered once they lost their overwatch. The fight lasted less than half an hour, but it felt like days. When it was over, the silence hit harder than the blaster fire. Just the crackle of burning crates and the whine of cooling power cores. 3 of ours were dead, 2 transports wrecked, cargo gone, no air support, no medevac, nothing. We sat in that canyon for hours, waiting for someone to answer our signal. When the static finally broke, the response was, get this, acknowledge damage and continue mission if possible. If possible. Like we weren't sitting in a grave. Thatcher sat down near what was left of the lead transport. I walked over and asked if he was hit. He shook his head. Nah, just thinking. That's all he said. Didn't talk the rest of the ride back. Didn't joke, didn't even complain when the rations were cold. He was one of the best soldiers I worked with. Better than you lot will ever be. I think that's enough story time for now though. Lieutenant might walk in and have us explain ourselves to Vader. Ah yeah, that lieutenant probably has more important matters to attend to. There was this one that always stayed with me. Not because of the fighting, but because there wasn't any. We were on Briar, backwater mid-rim system, dry plateaus, scrub terrain, and low enough dust in the air to clog your filters twice a day. There'd been a hit on a nearby supply depot. Rebels got in, took what they wanted, vanished into the wild. Command tagged the area for a sweep. We were told the usual, high-value targets might be in the region. Secure all civilians, lethal force authorized if resistance is shown. Every time they say that last part, they act like it's protocol, but you hear the tone. They want you to use it. Anyways, we were 5 troopers running a search grid. Midday, heat bouncing off the rocks like a furnace. Tension's always higher on these kinds of sweeps because you never know what qualifies as hostile until someone's already bleeding. We found him near the edge of a shallow ravine, with just one guy, mid-20s, lean, sweaty, scared. Worn out rebel jacket, no weapon in sight. I don't even think he knew we were there until he turned and saw the rifles. He froze, hands halfway up, didn't move, didn't speak. We called for him to identify himself and nothing. One of the other troopers raised his blaster. I held up a hand and stepped forward. The guy looked like he'd been running for days. He was done, spooked, dehydrated, practically shaking apart. I told him to get on his knees. He did. I asked his name. He didn't answer. There was a long silence after that, just the wind and our armor servos. Then I said, "You're not armed, you're not resisting, you walk away now. I never saw you." He didn't move. At first I thought he didn't understand, then he nodded, once, real slow, like he wasn't sure it was real. He stood, turned, and walked. Not fast, not scared, just like someone who didn't want to be part of any of this anymore. We didn't report it, the others didn't say a word. We logged it as an abandoned trail, no contact. A week later, Our station got hit. Same tactics as the depot hit. Quiet breach, explosives on the main door, 2 guards dead, supply crates gone, the kind of hit that takes planning and local knowledge. Could have been anyone, could have been him. No one brought it up, but I knew the others were thinking it too. Sometimes you pull the trigger and regret it, sometimes you don't and regret that even more. I don't know if I made the right call that day, but I remember his face. Not angry, not proud, just a guy trying to survive. I let him go, and I still carry it. Some assignments sound better than they are. Agri Sector Security Detail. That's what it said on the orders. Sounded harmless enough. Farms, crops, maybe a few angry locals throwing dirt at patrols. Easy credits, light boots. We got deployed to a place called Geitsly, a minor satellite world in the Outer Rim. Mild weather, slow seasons, plenty of flatland good for root farming and cereal yields. Officially, the moon had been tagged for Imperial Agricultural Optimization, which meant, of course, that someone had figured out how to squeeze money from it. When we landed, prefab grids were already sprouting across the valley floors. Landing pads, comm towers, admin tents, grain silos. Survey droids skimmed the hills day and night, marking boundaries and production zones. Our job was simple: maintain order and protect Imperial agricultural interests. We didn't really know what that meant. Not yet. At first, was routine. Static post-duty, cargo escorts, patrol loops around processing sites. We'd watch laborers move crates, scan locals for contraband, though no one ever had any. They were mostly older, families, quiet, covered in dust that never seemed to wash off. We didn't speak their language, and the only translator on staff was some Corp Sector clerk who stayed in her comm tent sipping caf and filing reports no one read. They told us the locals were temporary laborers, migrants, but their homes had family banners hung over the door. You could see burial stones on the hillsides. You don't bring ancestors to a short-term worksite. I started asking around. Nothing loud, just small questions. Why weren't the locals listed in the payroll manifest? Why didn't they show up in Imperial Labor records? The lieutenant waved it off. Joint venture with the Commerce Bureau, he said. Cleared at the sector level. That's code for shut your mouth. Then came the eviction order. A comm relay needed to be dropped in the center of a village. The locals were told to move out within 48 hours. No relocation plan, no transports, just a notice and a timer. We geared up expecting resistance. Protests, maybe a few angry shouts, but when we arrived, they were just sitting, quiet, bags packed, not yelling, not pleading, just refusing to leave. Command gave the go-ahead to proceed with clearance. We started soft, warning announcements, staged approach, non-lethals visible. Then, some mid-tier exec from the contractor side came storming in, shouting about construction delays and pushing old women out of their homes. A child cried, someone fell, we were told to advance. I didn't want to, none of us did, but we did it. By sundown, the village was rubble, bulldozed. We set up the relay tower on what used to be their fire-grain plots. Next few weeks blurred together. More clearances, more sites tagged for redevelopment. The same pattern every time. Deny, displace, demolish. We stopped carrying binders. These weren't arrests, they were removals. One morning, I saw a sign scratched into the mud outside a worker tent. It took me a while to piece together the dialect. It said, "We were here first." That one stuck with me. The worst part? They weren't fighting back. There were no traps, no raids, no sabotage, just silent defiance. They'd stand at the edge of the new fencing, arms crossed, watching us as if we'd already erased them. And all that was left was waiting for the paperwork to catch up. One night, I was pulling midnight watch. A kid, maybe 10, snuck into the outer yard. He didn't steal anything, didn't even touch a crate, just stood in the dark, staring at a container marked Corporate Property, Class 4 Processing Unit. I raised my blaster. He looked at me, then turned and walked away. Didn't say a word, neither did I. The next day, a motion sensor tripped. Nothing stolen, but we were told to patrol with safeties off after that. Precautionary posture, they called it. I remember watching the survey droids paint grid lines across the valley and realizing I didn't know what we were protecting anymore. That's the part they leave out of the recruitment hollows. You don't always fight rebels or pirates. Sometimes you fight farmers. Sometimes the enemy is whoever stood between you and a construction site. We left Gygor after 90 days. Not a single shot fired, not a single casualty logged. Command called it a successful pacification, profitable control. But I still see the fires from the last clear out. I still hear the screaming when we dragged that woman from her home. We didn't win anything. We just cleared the way for someone else to. This job can be tough. I've done things I don't talk about. But I'd go back there in a heartbeat before I set foot in this next village, because this one, it still makes my skin crawl. It was a recon mission, nothing flashy. We were on patrol rotation in the Trionux system, outer moon, swampy, barely habitable. Mostly used for low-tier resource extraction and mineral skimming. No formal settlements, no registry, not even a name, just a string of alphanumerics on the chart. Local miners had started reporting thefts, missing tools, stripped supplies, crates gone from drop zones. Even occasional sightings of movement deep in the tree line. No confirmed rebel presence, but enough red flags that command kicked the issue down to us. So, we dropped in. 4 troopers, including me. Standard sweep loadout. We touched down at dawn and started the march. The terrain was awful. Thick vines, knee-deep mud, canopies so dense you couldn't even see the shuttle once it lifted. The air was wet, heavy, and smelled like rotting roots and burnt oil. Rifles fogged up before we'd even cleared the first click. It took us a full day to reach the grid marker where most of the sightings had been logged, and that's where we found it. A village. Not on any chart, not tagged in the nav system, no transponders. 12 structures total. Huts, if you want to be generous, built from local timber, with paneling scavenged from Imperial drop crates and atmospheric sensor towers. Half of it looked like it had been stitched together from crash debris. Clever for squatters, the lieutenant muttered. But what I remember most, it was silent. Not quiet, silent. No bugs, no birds, no wind, no droid hum, not even the usual whine from our servos. Just air, heavy and dead. Our comms started breaking up the second we crossed into the perimeter, like the signal couldn't decide if it wanted to connect or not. We moved in slow, no movement, no signs of resistance, but it looked lived in. Fresh ash in the hearths, half-cut root vegetables on prep stones, one pot still steaming like it had only just been taken off the fire. But no people, no bodies, no signs of a fight, no blood, just empty space where lives had been seconds ago. At first, we of course figured they saw the shuttle coming and bolted. Locals can scatter fast when they want to, but something was off. There were data pads still on, blankets still warm, food still half eaten. And then there was the weird stuff. Every single mirror was covered. Not broken, but covered with cloth, mud, metal scrap, even some kind of resin from the local trees smeared across the glass like paint. Every reflective surface blocked. That's when I started noticing something else. There were no signs of children, none. No toys, no beds, no clothes, no mess. And this wasn't a temporary settlement. The beams were weathered, moss on the siding, rain rot in the supports. These people had been here a long time. So where were the kids? One of ours, Kryn, found a trapdoor under one of the huts. Said he thought he heard movement. Could have been nerves, could have been something else, but we pried it open. The smell hit instantly. Damp, chemical, just wrong. Like old fuel tanks left to rot in a jungle. Not death exactly, just wrong. Stairs led down to a bunker, plasteel paneling stamped with outdated Imperial serials. Looked like a survival shelter. Could have been from the Clone Wars for all we knew. We went in. At the bottom, a circular room. Dirt floor, metal walls, single wooden chair in the center, facing a mirror. One mirror, uncovered, clean. We didn't speak. Kryn stepped toward it, rifle up. I told him to stop, but he didn't. He stepped into the room, looked straight at the glass, and whispered, "I think I see." Then the power cut off. Total blackness, comms dropped, helmet lights shorted out, Everything in our suits flickered like something was draining the charge. Static in the air, but no heat. And behind us, I swear I heard something move. Not run, not attack, just move. When the lights came back, Kryn was gone. No blood, no noise, no impact. Just the empty chair and the mirror. Still clean. We left. Fast. Didn't finish the sweep, didn't clear the huts, just got out and hiked back to the LZ where the air still felt like air. Evac picked us up. We logged it as a collapsed structure and environmental hazard, nothing more. No one asked about Kryn. There wasn't a body to ask about. 3 days later, another squad went in to finish the recon, and they found nothing. No village, no huts, no scorched fire pits, trees intact, terrain undisturbed. Like it had never existed. Final report filed it as data corruption, bad terrain scan, misread coordinates, atmospheric interference. We didn't argue, but sometimes, when I'm walking past a reflective panel or looking out at the stars from the viewport, I'll see something. A flicker, a shape, not moving, just watching. I blink and it's gone. Maybe it's trauma, maybe it's memory, or maybe some places really don't want to be found. They never told us why we were posted there. Just coordinates, no local intel, no threat assessment. The order said, deploy 4 troopers to checkpoint 72, maintain presence, log daily activity. So we did. Checkpoint 72 was a small concrete structure out on the edge of a desert plateau in the outer sector of Geonosis. 1 prefabricated guard station, 2 sentry towers, a scanner post, and a single barrier across an old, half-buried road that didn't lead anywhere. We knew the name, of course. Everyone does. The Clone Wars started there. Full-scale battle, droid factories, Jedi losses, the whole thing. But that was the core territory, the blast craters and the burial zones. Where we were, it was nothing. Just rock and silence, miles beyond the old conflict sites. Like someone forgot to turn off the war and left this part running in the background. We checked the maps. No towns, no trade routes, no mining claims, nothing but sand and sky. And yet, the checkpoint was powered. Full generator, auto-feed rations, climate control, all working, all spotless, like it had been activated yesterday. We reported in on arrival and got a simple reply. Confirmed. Maintain position. Observe. Observe what, exactly? That was never clear. The first week, we followed protocol, logged patrols, monitored sensors, filed daily reports, but nothing ever tripped. No ships, no signals, not even a scorpion tick. Just dust and silence. By the second week, we started fabricating reports, little things. Ambient sensor spikes, intermittent scanner noise, static bursts on the long-range band, just to feel like we were doing something. Then the logs started coming back, edited. We'd send in a report about a sensor fluctuation, and the return file would have it redlined. No anomaly detected. We'd note a heat bloom from a passing wind shear. Weather conditions stable. It wasn't that we were being ignored, we were being corrected. That's when Dre started to change. He was our comms guy, always talking, always cracking jokes, the kind who could make a dead outpost feel like a cantina. But he went quiet, said he kept hearing something in the static. Not voices, just tones. Same pitch every time, he told me, like it's trying to tune in but we're not on the right frequency. We brushed it off as cabin fever. But then Vash heard it too, and Vash wasn't the kind to imagine things. I tried to write it off, told him it was low-band tower echo, probably a harmonic loop. But I started taking my helmet off more just to get away from the comm hiss, and then came the dreams. At first, it was just heat flashes, horizon lines, but then they repeated, same every night. I was standing outside the checkpoint tower, staring down the buried road, except it wasn't buried, it was new, fresh Duracrete, and someone was walking up it. Always the same figure, always in the distance, never close enough to see the face, just walking toward me. I'd wake up sweating, boots on, rifle in my hands, like I was meant to be ready. One morning, Dre didn't come out of his bunk. Door sealed, we broke it open and the room was empty. No gear missing, no signs of force, his ID chip was still charging on the bunk rail. We reported it. The response came back. Personnel count 4. No anomalies reported. The response came back. Personnel count 4. No anomalies reported. We checked the central log. Dre's name was gone. Not marked AWOL, not reassigned, just never deployed. We didn't argue. After that, we stopped talking unless we had to. Kept the log short. No activity. All systems normal. By day 43, we barely recognized each other's voices. Then the scanner pinged. Just once. A signal. 2 clicks out. No transponder, no movement. Just the flicker, then gone. We didn't investigate. We packed our gear, left a final log, walked into the desert, straight toward the coordinates. No orders, no rationale. We just didn't want to be at 72 anymore. 3 hours later, a shuttle picked us up. No questions. We were reassigned the next cycle. Never heard about checkpoint 72 again. No follow-up, no incident file. I searched once, deployment archive, geosector manifest, and there's no checkpoint 72. They said the sector was clear. Low-risk patrol zone, the briefing called it. Minimal resistance. Local scav activity only. So we were sent to run a sweep of the outer ridge near Carbon Ridge Drop, west of the Star Destroyer graveyard, far from Nima Outpost. 6 Stormtroopers, 2-day recon, no vehicles, all by foot. We'd barely been on Jakku 12 hours, and I already hated it. Nothing but sand, wind, and silence. The kind that gets into your helmet and stays there, humming against your ears like a warning you can't quite hear. The heat baked you from above, and the glare bounced up from the ground like it wanted to blind you twice. We'd made it about 20 clicks from the camp when we found the first wreck. Not a ship, a patrol pod. Old Imperial make, scorched from the inside, no survivors. 3 trooper helmets stacked in the sand next to it, all cracked down the middle, like something had split them open with precision. That should have been enough to turn back, but the lieutenant said, "Scav work, keep moving." So we did. Night came fast. Jakku doesn't ease into it. The sun just dies and the cold hits like a punch. We made camp in the shadow of a broken Walker chassis. No fire, just low heat lamps and perimeter scans. That's when Joel went missing. Sentry duty, second shift. 1 minute he was at the ridge edge, next minute nothing. Comms silent, no movement, no noise. We searched, found his blaster still charged, just his helmet sitting upright in the sand like someone had placed it there. We pulled back and reinforced the perimeter. Didn't sleep much. Every noise became something to aim at, but nothing came, just wind and static. Next morning, we found 2 more gone. Armor plates scattered. 1 set of boots half buried like someone had tried to dig in. Sand churned like a struggle happened and then stopped. No drag marks, no trail. Whatever was taking us wasn't sloppy. We pulled back toward the wreck fields, figuring the signal towers might boost our distress call, and that's when we saw them. The steel peckers, desert scavenger birds, nasty things, usually travel in swarms, pick through wrecks, but these ones weren't circling metal. They were circling a trooper's corpse. Torso only, stripped clean, not chewed, etched. Like something had sliced the flesh away, layer by layer. Now, I've seen what blasters do and I've seen what knives do. This wasn't that. We tried to evac, fired a flare, pinged our signal, no reply. The sergeant set a new rally point, halfway to the old forward outpost. We started moving fast. That's when it came for us. We never saw it fully, just movement. Fast, low to the ground, kicking up sand like a drill. It hit us hard. Pulled Vicel right off his feet. 1 second he was next to me, the next he was screaming, half dragged under the dunes. We fired in all directions, no target. The sand moved like it was alive. We ran. Didn't make it far. We split up around a crash tie frame, but the thing followed. It was like it could hear us breathe. By the end of it, only 2 of us were left, me and Corin. We made it to the outpost ruins, locked ourselves in a rusted supply crate, and cut power to everything. Sat there in total dark, listening. Hours passed, no sound, then faintly a scraping, something moving over metal, sniffing, waiting, and then it left. Next morning, evac finally pinged back. Local sandstorm had blocked the signal. Typical. Shuttle touched down just past midday. Pilot looked at the two of us and asked, "Where's the rest of your squad?" I didn't answer, and he didn't press. The debrief was short. Unidentified wildlife activity. They marked it as a sand burrower attack, but I checked the planetary database later. Nothing on record matches what we saw. No animal that big, no predator that quiet, but here's what I know. Steel peckers don't circle for sport. They follow the kill, and whatever's out there, it doesn't eat metal. We left that part of Jakku off the patrol grid after that, but maps don't mean anything out there. The sand, it remembers the taste of you. I heard they sent a squad to investigate what happened to us. Recovery unit, full sensor suite, recon droids, the works. 2 dropships, 8 troopers. Their job was simple: locate the rest of our squad, confirm losses, retrieve anything salvageable. They touched down about 2 clicks from where we lost the others, and they didn't even make it to the ridge. First signal went out 10 minutes after they landed. Standard position ping, and then static. Command sent out a second team, this time with a remote drone escort. The drones reached the LZ just before dawn, and all they found was a crater in the sand. Big, clean, no wreckage, no bodies, just a single white pauldron, half melted, sitting upright in the middle of it. They logged the op as compromised. Local scavengers, environmental instability, thermal collapse. Anything but the truth. They scrubbed the grid from the patrol schedule after that. Redesignated the whole zone as geologically unstable. But we knew better. Whatever took our squad, it doesn't leave remains. Not all assignments are on the front. For a while, I was stationed on Coruscant, part of a ceremonial security unit near the Imperial Palace. Officially, it was a prestige post. High visibility, direct command chain, clean armor, daily inspections. We didn't patrol, we stood still. 8-hour shifts in one spot, no sitting, no speaking, just watching. You'd rotate to a different floor or corridor every few weeks, but the rules never changed. You never made eye contact with the officials, you never turned your head unless ordered, and you never asked questions. My first rotation was on the East Promenade, the one with the towering statues and black marble floors so polished they look wet. It was quiet, too quiet for a city with trillions. The ambient sound was filtered. No air traffic sounds, no crowds, just this hum. Like the whole building breathed beneath the walls. They said the palace was built over the bones of the old Jedi temple. They never said what they did with what was left. Most days were nothing. Long hours, same faces, same boots thudding across stone. But then you'd see something strange. A figure in deep red robes moving through a restricted hallway. No clearance badge, no escort. Or a squad of shadow troopers disappearing into a sub-level that wasn't on the building map. One time, I caught a reflection that didn't line up. In the glass beside me, I saw someone walking behind me. But I was alone on that watch. I didn't turn. Just logged it as a minor environmental distortion. You learn to let things slide. The lift system had a button labeled Sub-Zero. It wasn't in the manual, wasn't part of any authorized route. Once, during maintenance lockdown, I watched a lift take someone there. He was wearing a mask I'd never seen before. Not a helmet, a mask. Smooth, blank, no mouth. The next day, that entire wing was sealed off. Permanently. We didn't talk about it. No one did. We were rotated out after 30 cycles. The only notice that was given, this posting did not occur. Do not include in service record. I checked my file later. It skipped 2 standard months. Just blank space. Near the end of my rotation, I was assigned to the lower east quadrant. Quiet sector, mostly administrative. Security was minimal. 1 checkpoint, no foot traffic past 0-100. I was on solo duty. Routine shift, 4 hours of silence and 2 stim tablets deep. I was halfway through a perimeter walk when I saw the hallway lights flicker. Not blink, but pulse, like something moved past them too fast for the eye to catch. I did the usual, checked the grid, logged a system glitch, called it in. They told me to monitor and log deviations. Standard answer when no one wants to come down and check. A few minutes later, I noticed something off about the wall paneling ahead. It was open slightly. A service hatch I'd passed a dozen times before, normally sealed tight, flush with the marble. This time, there was a draft, cold air, and something else. A smell, metallic, dry, like old electronics left out in the sun too long. I called for confirmation on the maintenance schedule and got no response. The channel was just dead, as if the system didn't exist anymore. I should have called it and waited for a relay team, but instead I stepped inside. The passage ran straight for 20 meters, then turned sharply left. It was narrow, tighter than it should have been for a palace structure. No signs, just black durasteel walls and silent ventilation. I followed it with my light low. That's when the temperature dropped. It was dead cold. My visor fogged, which shouldn't even happen under thermal regulation. HUD flickered. Bioread blanked for 2 seconds. And then I heard it. A voice in my head. It wasn't words exactly, just a sense of being known, watched, judged, like something had reached past the armor, past the training, and found the exact part of me that still wasn't sure why I signed up in the first place. I staggered, nearly dropped my rifle. When I looked up, the corridor had changed. It was shorter, visibly. The turn was gone, replaced by a single black door. No panel, no markings. I blinked, and it was back to normal. Just a service tunnel, door gone, path restored. I backed out, careful, slow. Command told me I'd wandered into a restricted legacy subzone, said my scanner logs were inconclusive, and said not to mention it again. But here's what stuck with me. The draft I felt when I first stepped inside, it smelled like dust, like something old had been breathing, and I'm not sure it ever stopped. We were stationed on Vardos at the time. Planet was under lockdown after a supply depot got hit by a rebel cell. Small one, half-trained locals, maybe a dozen at most. They stole munitions, hit a convoy, then vanished into the ice cliffs. Command wasn't happy. Our unit had been assigned to that sector. Patrol rotation missed the timing window by 4 minutes. 4 minutes. That's what the lieutenant said over and over, like repeating it made it less fatal. We were recalled to base, full inspection. I figured we'd get reassigned, maybe chewed out, maybe lose rations for a week, something to make it official. Instead, they brought in Lord Vader. One moment, we're in the hangar, lined up for a debrief. The next, the temperature drops like someone opened a hatch to space. You hear it before you see him. That breathing. He walked through the hangar like the place didn't matter, like none of us mattered. He didn't speak at first, just stopped in front of our lieutenant. Our lieutenant, Rail, was tough, one of the good ones. He'd been with us through 3 campaigns, took hits for his squad, never barked orders just to bark. He saluted, straight posture, no shaking. Lord Vader, he said calm. Vader didn't say a word, just raised his hand, and Rail started choking. No accusation, just up in the air, gasping, armor plates buckling from the pressure. I remember the sound his helmet made when it cracked, like a soda can under a boot. No one dared to move. You don't move when death is standing next to you. You breathe slower, like it might keep you invisible. When Rail hit the ground, Vader turned to the next in line. Sergeant Tiln. Promotion, he said. That's all. Then he walked out, like he'd just rearranged a supply shelf. Tiln was staring at the body when someone handed him a new rank bar. He took it with both hands, quiet, numb. After that, nobody joked anymore. Not even Alda, back when he was still around. We double-checked our orders, triple-checked our timing. Tiln never raised his voice, never made eye contact. He just gave commands in a flat whisper. Because once you've seen a man die for 4 minutes of failure, you stop trying to be noticed, and you start trying to disappear in your own armor. Before you ever hold a blaster in the field, you spend months in a white room getting screamed at by someone who's already seen too much. For us, that someone was Sergeant Resh, one of the last clone instructors still in active rotation. You could tell he was getting old. Clone aging, you know. Voice like gravel, knees stiff, but still stronger than any of us, still sharp. He'd paced the barracks at night just to make sure no one forgot what silence sounded like. Resh didn't talk much, not unless you earned it. But every once in a while, during downtime, he'd sit on one of the crates in the gear bay and let something slip. War stories, Clone Wars stuff, the kind of things you wouldn't find in the Academy Hollows. And when he talked, the whole room went quiet. He'd seen Geonosis, Umbara, Ryloth, and Kashyyyk, and he hated every one of them. But what stuck with me wasn't the battles, it was the Jedi. He never said it directly, he never called them traitors, not like the recruitment vids do. No, Resh would just drop details, little things, enough to make you wonder what kind of people they really were. He told us about one op on some forest moon. He never gave it a name. Said they were tracking a separatist science vessel that had gone dark. Intel said it crash-landed somewhere in the trees, so his unit was dispatched to investigate. When they reached the site, the forest was scorched. Trees blackened and melted, the whole area soaked in ash and acid like something had eaten the ground. And right in the center of it all, the Jedi who'd been leading the mission, standing there, calm, eyes closed, meditating like nothing had happened. Every clone in the recon squad was gone. When Resh asked the Jedi what happened, the answer was, the Force took its toll. I survived. That was all he said. No explanation, no grief, just serenity, while 30 troopers never made it out. Another time, he told us about a temple on Jabiim. Said they were ordered to secure some ancient ruin after the front collapsed. Squad got inside, started setting up perimeters, then the Jedi leading the op went off alone. When they found him again, he was standing in front of a wall covered in symbols, holding his lightsaber like a torch. Resh asked what they were supposed to guard. The Jedi said, "What's buried here doesn't belong to time." 2 troopers went missing that night. Resh never gave us a moral. He didn't rant about betrayal or scream about Order 66. He just looked at the wall behind us like he could still see those places. And then he'd say something like, "Don't get sentimental about capes and lightsabers. They left us behind once, they'd do it again." And before you ask, yes, I've seen a Jedi, I think. It was supposed to be a cleanup op. Remote mountain region on Gorse, Outer Rim, mining world, dull, overworked, full of tunnels and half-collapsed slag fields. Not a place you'd expect trouble. But a civilian survey team went missing near the old spice caves. Command figured it was a collapse or gas pocket ignition. Sent us in to confirm, secure, and extract. We were 5, standard squad. I was point, Vash handled rear security, 2 techs and a comms lead made up the rest. First 100 meters into the cave, we found the surveyed crawler, still running, lights on, no crew, dust hadn't even settled. That was the first bad sign. Second was when our helmets started glitching. Minor at first, HUD flickers, comms delay, biosigns blinking in and out. Tech said it was radiation from the mineral veins. He didn't sound convinced though. We pushed forward, caverns narrowed, then opened into a wide basin. There were signs of struggle, scattered equipment, broken gear, drag marks. Then Vash called out, "I've got movement." We raised rifles, scanned the rock walls, and nothing. Heat sigs were erratic, surging, dropping, gone. Like whatever was down there was choosing when to be seen. And that's when we saw him, just standing there in the open, wearing an old frayed robe, hood up and barefoot. We called out, "Identify yourself, hands where we can see them." But no response. He just started walking toward us. In a single motion, he drew a lightsaber and angled it just enough to redirect the bolt mid-flight. It was like he'd done it 1,000 times. The bolt sizzled off the blade and lit the cave wall behind him, and we opened fire. Blaster bolts lit up the chamber like a storm, and none of them found its mark. The shots missed. Every one, like space around him bent just enough to curve them away. The comms lead started to panic, tried to run. The Jedi didn't even look at him, just closed his hand in the air. The comm went down, hard, like something had crushed his chest without touching him. We backed up fast, and then he finally spoke, only 3 words. "This isn't yours." That's when the lights failed. Total darkness, screaming, rifle bursts flashing off the cave walls. By the time I made it back to the surface, I was alone. Command asked for a report. I said structural collapse, hostile fauna, said I never saw a person. They didn't ask twice. 2 weeks later, I pulled the sensor logs. There's only one recording that survived. 3 seconds of audio before everything cut out. Heavy breathing, footsteps. I don't know who he was, I don't know what he wanted, but he wasn't a peacekeeper and he wasn't human anymore. There's silence in space, sure, but that kind of silence is clean, dry, predictable. Underwater silence? That's different. It's wet, heavy, full of movement, like even when there's no sound, the ocean's still thinking about you. We were deployed to Manan, Deep Sea Platform 7. Submerged Imperial facility, mostly research and logistics, nothing combat oriented. At least that's what they told us. Mission was basic, garrison rotation, short term, 2-week hold, reinforced local security while the techs moved equipment to a newly constructed lower dome. The original structure was built during the Republic era, retrofitted for our purposes. There was a big central column running down from the sea surface, branching domes off the main stem like pods on a vine. 8 total: medical, engineering, living quarters, experimental labs. They didn't tell us what kind of experiments, but that was standard issue. We weren't there to ask questions. It was 5 of us: Sergeant Rivo on lead, me, Delaran, Tesh, and Jax, all from the same fire team. We ran clean rotation, 6-hour patrols along the inner access corridors, 2-hour external EVA checks using suit boosters, helmets always on, visibility barely past 10 meters. That's what no one tells you about ocean patrol. You're blind. Even with sensor overlay, it's all sonar blur and half shapes on the edge of your light. You move slow. Every sound echoes off steel and water and your own heartbeat. First few days were uneventful. Long, quiet hours watching scientists haul crates between airlocks. The place felt weirdly empty, like most of the personnel had cleared out before we even got there. Official logs said 63 staff on station, and we counted maybe 25. And they never looked you in the eye. Jax noticed first. He started saying the layout didn't match the schematic. It'd count steps between domes, swear it didn't line up. Said the engineering pod was bigger on the inside. We told him he was just stir crazy. But then Tesh brought it up too. Said the gravity felt off in certain corridors, like the pressure was different. Lighter in the center ring. He dropped a ration bar in the mess and it hovered for half a second before hitting the floor. We laughed at the time, but we shouldn't have. On day 6, we lost contact with the biolab dome. Life support read nominal, no breach alarms, but all internal signals flatlined. Command said it was a system fault, ordered us to send a tech team in. Problem was there wasn't one, not anymore, so they told us to check it. Rivo took point, me and Jax followed. We crossed the spine connector, tight corridor linking the central hub to the dome. Normally sealed off on both ends, but the bulkheads were already open. Inside, the lights were dim, emergency strips only. Console screens were still active, but flickering. The kind of flickering you don't get from power issues, more like interference. Movement registered in 3 of the 5 rooms, but we didn't see anything. No bodies, no staff. The walls were wet, sweating, covered in fine droplets, like the moisture was coming from inside the material. The air tasted off, even through filters. It was like salt and copper. Rivo ordered a split sweep. Jax and I took the lower tier. We found 1 data pad, still active. Video log was open, playback frozen on a single frame. A pressure monitor, numbers spiking, red, then black. A timestamp, 0302 local, and then the sound cuts in. Low thumping, like footsteps in water, and the screen goes blank. We left the dome, fast. Tried to seal it behind us, but the doors wouldn't lock. Pressure reads showed no anomalies. Command insisted it was isolated data corruption. Next morning, Tesh was gone. We found his suit in the prep room. Helmet still on the bench. Log said he'd accessed the outside hatch at 0447. Alone, no authorization. Drifted out into the trench zone. No one was allowed to follow. Command's message was clear. Do not pursue, do not investigate, continue rotation. Delran lost it after that, started refusing to sleep near the windows. Said he saw lights moving out there, not sublights, not beacons, something organic, slow, pulsing. We tried to get him pulled, but they denied it. The night before we left, I woke up to static on the comm, white noise, but underneath it, I swear I heard something speaking. Not basic, not Huttese, something deep, alien, like a voice slowed down to the point of breaking. I checked the internal comm log and nothing, no playback file. We rotated out the next day, quietly, no ceremony, no replacement team arrived while we were still there. As we boarded the evac transport, I looked back through the viewport. The station lights flickered once, and then the biodome went dark, completely. No report ever followed. It's not in the station registry anymore. No mention in the archives. Platform 7 was decommissioned 6 weeks later. But I still dream in pressure tones, and sometimes when I close my eyes, I swear I can see something watching back through the glass. Dantooine was quiet, too quiet. We'd been stationed in the outer territories before, but this one felt different. Rolling hills, old stone villages, scattered farms. It looked like a pastoral holofilm, like war had never touched it, and maybe it hadn't. Not directly, not until us. We were told to support a classified asset on a Jedi hunting mission. We were given just a transmission code. Inquisitor designate. We didn't ask questions. The briefing was 5 lines long. Suspected Jedi presence, recent rebel activity, rural civilian population, zero tolerance protocol. You follow orders, you do not speak unless addressed. When we landed, there were 2 Lambda shuttles on the ridge already, black painted, no markings. Standing between them was the asset. Tall, thin, pale armor, more ceremonial than practical. Lightsaber on the hip, curved hilt, red edge catching the morning sun. He didn't look at us, not once, just walked past and we followed. The target was a small commune tucked into a valley. Population maybe 40, old buildings, no visible weapons, kids running around barefoot in the dust. Locals didn't even flinch when the gunship flew over. That was the first warning sign. The second was when the Inquisitor ordered us to split up and search the homes, one by one. We expected resistance, there wasn't any. We found old tools, livestock, food stores, but no weapons, no tech, no transmissions. Then, the Inquisitor ordered the villagers into the main square. He walked a slow circle through them, head tilted, like he was listening for something we couldn't hear. A few kids started crying. One woman knelt, begged. He didn't even look at her. Then, he stopped in front of an old man, grey-bearded, shaking, probably a farmer, and the Inquisitor asked him a single question. "Do you know the name Kelnar Voss?" The man said nothing. The Inquisitor nodded once, then activated his saber and cut the man in half. The blade hissed through the air. The village erupted, screams, chaos. A few tried to run, and we were ordered to gun them down. 2 troopers hesitated. The Inquisitor turned, didn't speak, just stared. They raised their rifles and complied. He said the name again, Kelnar Voss. Old Jedi, according to intel, last seen on Dantooine years ago. We didn't find him, just scared farmers who probably didn't know what a Jedi was. Over the next 3 days, we searched everything within a 20-click radius. Barns, temples, caves. No sign of a Force user. But it didn't matter. The Inquisitor executed 7 more people. Said they were connected, that the Force trembled when they spoke. He never raised his voice, never gave more than a sentence at a time, and every time he passed one of us, our armor felt heavier, like the air around him was pressing inward. On the 4th day, Lieutenant Harv asked just one question, just one. He asked if the executions were being logged. The Inquisitor turned to him. "Do you fear judgment, Lieutenant?" Harv said, "I fear disobedience to protocol." The Inquisitor raised his hand. Harv's helmet collapsed in on itself, his head crushed like an empty tin inside the armor. He dropped before we could blink. The Inquisitor turned to the rest of us. You all fear the wrong things. No one spoke again. We were reassigned the next morning, quietly. No mention of Harv, no name listed in the report. Later, I pulled the mission archive. It had been marked minimal resistance, no confirmed Jedi. The Inquisitor's name wasn't on the record. The villagers were never acknowledged, the executions didn't exist. Even the location was wrong. Said the operation occurred in Sector 11. We were in Sector 14. But you want to know what scares me? Not rebels, not Jedi. It's that the Empire doesn't need the truth. It doesn't even need victory. It just needs obedience. And men like him, they don't chase ghosts, they make them. Now, we don't really take prisoners, and pretty sure that guy wouldn't, but there was a time when I had no choice. It happened on Kuras 4, backwater farming moon in the mid-rim, not even on the main star charts. Half the settlements didn't have running water, let alone defenses. We were sweeping rural zones after a stolen munitions crate showed up in a customs raid. Our orders were to locate and reclaim Imperial property. That's it. My squad was doing recon through a brush field outside a village. Nothing on scopes, clear comms, and then boom. Ground charge. Precision, low yield, just strong enough to flip me and knock the wind out of my lungs. I woke up in a shed. No armor, hands cuffed behind me, bruised but intact. There were 3 of them, locals, just farmers in patchwork vests and makeshift gear. 2 men, 1 woman, all older than me, all armed. They didn't threaten me, didn't even hit me, they just stood in the doorway, watching. I figured they were going to interrogate me, maybe trade me, maybe shoot me and dump the body. Instead, the woman stepped forward and asked if I was hungry. I didn't answer. She left and came back with water and some bread. Every instinct told me it was a trick, but I drank and I ate. They didn't ask for intel, didn't ask about troop movements or command structure, just kept me there. 2 days, maybe 3. They never gave me a name or a reason. They kept the cuffs on, but I could stand, I could sit. One of them even gave me a blanket when the night got cold. It didn't feel safe, but I didn't feel like a prisoner either. I remember one night, the older guy was sitting near the door, blaster across his lap, boots kicked up. He looked at me and said, "They burned our fields when I was 10, called it a containment sweep." Then he went quiet. It was like they didn't hate me, not really. I was just wearing the armor of the people who ruined their lives. And then the dropships came. 3 ties screamed overhead. Shuttles hit the ground half a click away. Stormtroopers poured out. Our squad plus 2 more. They lit up the place. My captors ran. I tried to shout, to say don't shoot, but no one heard me. I saw the woman fall first, blaster through the chest. Then one of the men, back turned, hands raised. The third one maybe made it 10 meters before he went down. They untied me, pulled me back into formation like I was a datapad they dropped. Just report to command, sanitize your armor. And then, I'll never forget this, one of the officers ordered a fire team to burn the village. The whole thing. I watched that shed go up, the one they kept me in. Just the place where people who hated the Empire still gave their prisoner a blanket. And I stood there in full kit, rifle across my chest, doing nothing. Because what was I going to do? Say no? Well, should we call it a day? I think we'll be coming out of hyperspace soon. Ah, you want the battle stories? I got those, but they're not as patriotic as you probably have in your head. This was on Jabiim, and the first thing you notice about Jabiim is the mud. It doesn't matter what gear you're wearing, how sealed your armor is, that black sludge gets in everywhere. Between plates, into joints, in your gloves, under your nails, down your back plate. Doesn't matter how long you've been dirtside, it never dries. We dropped in under heavy cloud cover, 24 trooper platoon. Our job was to retake Outpost Verus, a forward position lost 3 days prior to what command called a small rebel incursion. They said they were insurgents, untrained, lightly equipped. Well, they lied. The LZ was hot before the first repulsor lift touched dirt. Anti-air fire lit the sky. One of the shuttles exploded on descent. No survivors. We hit the ground, already in full sprint, because we knew standing still meant death. The storm started an hour into the push. horizontal rain, visibility maybe 10 meters, thunder so loud it made your visor shake. And the rebels? Yeah, they weren't lightly equipped. They had mines, they had turret nests, they had snipers with armor-piercing rounds. We advanced 3 meters at a time. Crawl, cover, fire, repeat. My unit took shelter behind the husk of an old TX-225 tank. One of ours from an earlier engagement, half sunk into the mud. That's when we realized just how bad the terrain was. One of the new troopers, Cannonth I think, stepped too far to the left and the ground swallowed him whole. Sinkhole, gone in seconds. We never saw his body. Still had to push forward. Outpost Varys was perched on a slope. Former comms relay station turned fortification. High ground. Clear view of the valley. We had to cross a kill zone to reach it. Command dropped in a support walker, ATSD unit. Thing lasted 5 minutes before a shoulder-fired missile took out its hip and sent it crashing sideways like a broken toy. We crawled past the wreckage and into the trench line. Close quarters, grenade blasts, screaming. I remember one moment. I was blind firing over the lip of the trench and a body fell on me. Rebel fighter. Couldn't have been older than 20. Still warm, still twitching. I shoved him off and kept shooting. No time to process. The inside of the outpost was worse. Tight corridors, blood smeared across consoles, emergency lights flickering. The enemy had also wired it with traps, pressure charges, dead switches, auto turrets wired to motion sensors. We cleared it inch by inch, lost 5 more troopers to interior fighting. One, Grell, died trying to disarm a rigged blast door, blew apart before he even got the panel open. By the time we raised the flag and reactivated the transponder, there were 8 of us left, out of 24. Command called it a success. We were given a brief rest, told reinforcers would rotate within the hour. They never did. We held Varys for 3 more days before another counterattack forced us to retreat. Whole push was abandoned. Rebels retook the outpost the next morning. And all that death, all that mud and fire and screaming, nothing changed. I've still got the mud from Jabiim in the seams of my armor. Every time it rains on a new planet, I smell it again. Not fear, not blood, just rot. Sometimes, we were assigned to urban deployment. I remember when we were sent to Solust, one of the lower city zones near the lava flow ring. They'd built these mining colonies out of Durasteel and desperation, then forgot about them once the ore veins had dried. Half the housing blocks were condemned, the other half were still full of people who couldn't afford to leave. The incident started with a housing shortage. 200 residents relocated from a collapsed sector, told they'd be resettled within a week. 4 weeks later, they were still sleeping in heat shelters and waiting for food droids that never came. Then someone started organizing. Flyers, graffiti, speeches in the market. Stop feeding the war machine. We pay, they bomb. Command flagged it, called it pre-insurrectionist rhetoric. So they sent us in. We arrived in the early evening. Riot shields, shock batons. Detained a few agitators, mostly kids. Teenagers with bad slogans painted on scrap. They yelled, but we didn't respond. Just scanned their IDs, logged the arrest, handed them off to internal security. Standard. The next day, the crowd came back. This time, it wasn't just teenagers. It was families, workers, people in patched up jumpsuits holding homemade signs. We're hungry. Where's the aid? No more evictions. Still peaceful. Then, the supply depot got hit. Someone tossed a thermal detonator through the gate while we were pulling back from the square. No injuries, minimal damage, but it changed everything. Command upgraded the event to level 4 civil unrest. That meant open dispersal authority. No need to arrest, no warnings required. We were given full armor, stun rifles, crowd suppression protocols. Secure the perimeter, quell aggression, restore order. The next day, the crowd wasn't yelling anymore. They were standing. Silent, rows of them, dozens deep. They had kids up front, elderly on the edges, like they thought we wouldn't advance if they made it hard to aim. We waited. First hour passed quietly. Then someone in the back threw a rock, bounced off a trooper's shoulder plate, but the order came down anyway. Advance formation, shields up, crowd dispersal active, and we moved forward. I was second row, left flank. I could see their faces. One woman was crying, just holding onto a boy in front of her who looked too stunned to blink. We hit him like a wall. Baton swings, gas canisters, shock pulses. I remember the hiss as the cartridges fired. The way the line split like someone kicked a hornet's nest. I saw someone trip. An old man fell backward over a crate and didn't get up. The next time I saw him, he was under 3 others, still not moving. Someone shouted, "They're unarmed," from the edge of our squad, but it didn't matter. You know how I knew? Because the lieutenant turned, pointed at the trooper who spoke, and said, "You question orders again, I'll put you on report." That trooper didn't speak again. By the time we pulled back, the square was empty. Blood streaks on the walls, debris still burning, people lying in the gutters where the med droids hadn't reached yet. We logged it as brief resistance escalated into violent confrontation. Video feed was archived and flagged under restricted access. Next day, new posters went up, faces of the ones who didn't come home, stuck to the walls with industrial glue. Command ordered them scrubbed, but I still see one of those faces sometimes. Woman, mid-30s, brown eyes, holding her son in the photo, the same one who was crying in front of me. I don't remember if I hit her, and that's the worst part. I might have. Alright fellas, I think we have time for one more. This one's about Linthos Station. Ever heard of it? No, you haven't, because it's not on any map anymore. It was a refueling and telemetry relay, outer rim, near the Sylvani Drift, mid-sized orbital platform. Nothing fancy, bare bones crew rotation, the kind of place that just needed warm bodies to man the consoles and wave at passing freighters. 6 of us were posted there for a 60-day watch cycle. That was the mission. Just watch. The commander who gave us the briefing didn't even bother reading it aloud, just handed over a data card and said, "Nothing ever happens out there, try not to go insane." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. First week was fine, clean bunks, rations and full stock, routine checks every 6 hours. We played sabak, polished gear, cleaned the same corridor twice a day, just to move around. But by day 12, silence started to get loud. No ships, no transmissions, no supply runs and no alerts. The stars didn't even move. They just sat there, frozen like the whole galaxy had forgotten this corner existed. One of the troopers, Grummo, started putting his helmet on just to hear something. The built-in filters gave him a low hum, something to anchor himself. He said the silence outside his skull felt like pressure. The void was trying to crawl into his ears. He started sleeping in full kit. By day 20, we stopped saluting, stopped logging reports. I mean, what were we logging anyway? Still here, still breathing, still no reason for this post to exist. Gent started talking to a service droid. Thought it was funny at first, until we caught him arguing with it. Said the droid told him the station was listening. By day 28, 2 troopers refused to speak unless spoken to. Claimed they wanted to conserve language, said they were starting to waste words. Day 35, we started forgetting time. Literally. The chronologs got out of sync. Room lighting flickered without schedule. Mealtime stopped feeling consistent. Once, I blinked and 3 hours passed. I was just staring at a bolt on the wall, didn't even realize it. I found a Grummo on day 41, standing in the airlock, helmet off, just staring through the viewport. "You ever think this place is a test?" he asked. "Like someone's watching to see who cracks first?" I told him to get some sleep. He said he'd already been asleep for days. That maybe this was the dream. We stopped seeing each other much after that. By day 52, the lights in the lower deck went out completely. No one volunteered to fix it. On day 59, we got a transmission. First in 2 months. It said, "Mission extended, resupply delayed, additional 30 days approved." Grummo laughed so hard he threw up in his helmet. I didn't. I just walked to the viewport and stared at the stars again. Same ones, same silence. Day 90 came. The shuttle arrived on time. Crew chief didn't even look at us when we boarded, just checked our names off a list. We didn't talk on the flight back. When we landed, the debrief officer asked if we had any notable activity to report. I said no, because if I told them what really happened on Linthos Station, how time broke, how silence became a scream, they wouldn't believe me. And if they did, they might send me back. Final approach in 2 minutes. All personnel prepare for emergence from hyperspace. Repeat, 2 minutes to emergence. Resume duty protocols. Well, there it is. Back to reality. Back to clean boots and tighter formations and pretending none of this ever happened. Funny, isn't it? You go light speed across the galaxy just to end up right where you started. No one ever really leaves anything behind. It just follows quieter. I know you won't remember half the stories I told, probably already forgot the names, but one day, maybe sooner than you think, something will happen. You'll freeze, you'll flinch, you'll wonder what the hell just crawled up your spine, and then you'll remember one of these stories. Not all of it, not the details, just enough to know that you're not the first. Maybe that'll help, maybe it won't. But at least you'll know someone else was there first. Now gear up, helmets on. War waits for no one.